The Outsiders, Chapter 5, Part 2. Johnny and I never went to the front of the church. You could see the front from the road, and sometimes farm kids rode their horses by on their way to the store. So we stayed in the very back, usually sitting on the steps and looking across the valley. We could see for miles, see the ribbon of highway and the small dots that were houses and cars. We couldn't watch the sunset since the back faced east, but I loved to look at the colors of the fields and the soft shadings of the horizon. One morning I woke up earlier than usual. Johnny and I had slept huddled together for warmth. Daly had been right when he said it would get cold where we were going. Being careful not to wake Johnny up, I went to sit on the steps and smoke a cigarette. The dawn was coming then. All the lower valley was covered with mist, and sometimes little pieces of it broke off and floated away in small clouds. The sky was lighter in the east, and the horizon was a thin golden line. The clouds changed from gray to pink, and the mist was touched with gold. There was a silent moment when everything held its breath, and then the sun rose. It was beautiful. Golly, Johnny's voice beside me made me jump. It sure was pretty. Yeah, I sighed, wishing I had some paint to do a picture with, while the sight was still fresh in my mind. The mist was what was pretty, Johnny said, all gold and silver. I said, trying to blow a smoke ring. Too bad it couldn't stay like that all the time. Nothing gold can stay. I was remembering a poem I'd read once. What? Nature's first green is gold, her hardest hue to hold. Her early leaf's a flower, but only so an hour. Then leaf subsides to leaf, so Eden sank to grief. So dawn goes down to day, nothing gold can stay. Johnny was staring at me. Where'd you learn that? That was what I meant. Robert Frost wrote it. He meant more to it than I'm getting, though. I was trying to find the meaning the poet had in mind, but it eluded me. I always remembered it because I never quite got what he meant by it. You know, Johnny said slowly, I never noticed colors and clouds and stuff until you kept reminding me about them. It seems like they were never there before. I thought for a minute. Your family sure is funny. But what happens to be so funny about it? I asked stiffly. Johnny looked at me quickly. I didn't mean nothing. I meant, well, Soda kind of looks like your mother did, but he acts just exactly like your father. And Derry is the spitting image of your father, but he ain't wild and laughing all the time like he was. He acts like your mother. And you don't act like either one. I know, I said. Well, I said, thinking this over, you ain't like any of the gang. I mean, I couldn't tell Two-Bit or Steve or even Derry about the sunrise and clouds and stuff. I couldn't even remember that poem around them. I mean, they just don't dig. Just you and Soda Pop, and maybe Cherry Valance. Johnny shrugged. Yeah, he said with a sigh. I guess we're different. Shoot, I said, blowing a perfect smoke ring. Maybe they are. By the fifth day, I was so tired of bologna I nearly got sick every time I looked at it. We had eaten all our candy bars in the first 2 days. I was dying for a Pepsi. I'm what you might call a Pepsi addict. I drink them like a fiend, and going for 5 days without one was about to kill me. Johnny promised to get some if he ran out of supplies, and I had to go get some more. But that didn't help me right then. I was smoking a lot more than I usually did. I guess because it was something to do. Although Johnny warned me that I would get sick smoking so much. We were careful with our cigarettes. If that old church ever caught fire, there'd be no stopping it. On the fifth day, I had read up to Sherman's siege of Atlanta and Gone with the Wind. Owed Johnny $150 from poker games, smoked 2 packs of Camels, and as Johnny had predicted, got sick. I hadn't eaten anything all day, and smoking on an empty stomach doesn't make you feel great. I curled up in a corner to sleep off the smoke. I was just about asleep when I heard, as if from a great distance, a low, long whistle that went off in a sudden high note. I was too sleepy to pay any attention, although Johnny didn't have any reason to be whistling like that. He was sitting on the back steps trying to read Gone with the Wind. I'd almost decided that I had dreamed the outside world and there was nothing real but bologna sandwiches and the Civil War, and the old church and the mist in the valley. It seemed to me that I had always lived in that church, or maybe lived during the Civil War and had somehow got transplanted. That shows you what a wild imagination I have. A toe nudged me in the ribs. Glory, said a rough but familiar voice. He looks different with his hair like that. I rolled over and sat up, rubbing the sleep out of my eyes and yawning. Suddenly I blinked. Hey, Dally. Hey, Ponyboy. He grinned down at me. Or should I say Sleeping Beauty? I never thought I'd live to see the day when I'd be so glad to see Dally Winston. But right then he meant one thing, contact with the outside world, and it suddenly became real and vital. How's Soda Pop? And the Fuzz? Are the Fuzz after us? Is Derry all right? The boys know where we are? What? Hold on, kid, Dally broke in. I can't answer everything at once. Do you want to go get something to eat first? I skipped breakfast and I'm about starved. You're starved? Johnny was so indignant he nearly squeaked. I remembered the baloney. Is it safe to go out? I asked eagerly. Yep, Dally searched in his shirt pocket for a cigarette, and finding none said, Got a cancer stick, Johnny Cake? Johnny tossed him a whole package. The Fuzz won't be looking for you around here, Dally said, lighting up. They think you've lit out for Texas. I've got Buck's T-Bird parked down the road a little way. Gosh almighty, boys. You ain't been eating anything. Ain't you been eating anything? Johnny looked startled. Yeah. Whatever gave you that idea, we ain't. Daly shook his head. You're both pale and you've lost weight. After this, get out in the sun more. You look like you've been through the mill. I started to say, look who's talking, but decided it would be safer not to. Daly needed a shave. A stubble of colorless beard covered his jaw. He looked like he was the one who'd been sleeping in his clothes for a week instead of us. I knew he hadn't seen a barber in months, but it was safer not to get mouthy with Dally Winston. Hey, Ponyboy, he fumbled with a piece of paper in his back pocket. I got a letter for you. A letter from who? The president, of course. Stupid. It's from Soda. Soda Pop? I said, bewildered. But how did he know? He came over to Buck's a couple of days ago for something and found that sweatshirt. I told him I didn't know where you were, but he didn't believe me. He gave me this letter and half his paycheck to give you, kid. You ought to see Derry. He's taking this mighty hard. I wasn't listening. I leaned back against the side of the church and read. Ponyboy. Well, I guess you got into some trouble, huh? Derry and me nearly went nuts when you ran out like that. Derry is awful sorry he hit you. You know he didn't mean it. And then you and Johnny turned up missing. And what with the dead kid in the park and Dally getting hauled into the station, well, it scared us something awful. The police came by to question us, and we told them as much as we could. I can't believe little old Johnny could kill somebody. I know Dally knows where you are, but you know him. He keeps his trap shut and won't tell me nothing. Derry hasn't got the slightest notion where you were at, and it's nearly killing him. I wish you'd come back and turn yourselves in, but I guess you can't since Johnny might get hurt. You sure are famous. You got a paragraph in the newspaper even. Take care and say hi to Johnny for us. Soda Pop Curtis. He can improve his spelling, I thought after reading it through 3 or 4 times. How come you got hauled in? I asked Allie. Shoot, kid, he grinned wolfishly. Them boys at the station know me by now. I get hauled in for everything that happens on our turf. When I was there, I kind of let it slip that y'all were heading for Texas, so that's where they're looking. He took a drag on a cigarette and cussed it good-naturedly for not being a cool. Johnny listened in admiration. You sure can cuss good, Dally. Sure can, Dally agreed wholeheartedly, proud of his vocabulary. But don't you kids get to picking up my bad habits. He gave me a hard rub on the head. Kid, I swear it don't look like you with your hair all cut off. It used to look tough. You and Soda had the coolest looking hair in town. I know, I said sourly. I look lousy, but don't rub it in. Do y'all want something to eat or not? Johnny and I leapt up. You better believe it. Gee, Johnny said wistfully. It sure will be good to get into a car again. Well, Dally drawled, I'll give you a ride for your money. Dally always did like to drive fast, as if he didn't care whether he got where he was going or not. And we came down the red dirt road off J Mountain doing 85. I like fast driving, and Johnny was crazy about drag races, but we both got a little green around the gills when Dally took a corner on 2 wheels with the brakes screaming. Maybe it was because we hadn't been in the car for so long. We stopped at a Dairy Queen, and the first thing I got was a Pepsi. Johnny and I gorged on barbecue sandwiches and banana splits. Glory, Dallas said amazed, watching us gulp the stuff down. You don't need to make like every mouthful's your last. I got plenty of money. Take it easy. I don't want you getting sick on me. And I thought I was hungry. Johnny merely ate faster. I didn't slow down until I got a headache. I didn't tell you something, Dally said, finishing his third hamburger. The Socs and us are having all-out warfare all over the city. That kid you killed had plenty of friends, and all over town it's Soc against Grease. We can't walk alone at all. I started carrying a heater. Dally, I said, frightened. You kill people with heaters. You kill 'em with switchblades too, don't you, kid? Dally said in a hard voice. Johnny gulped. Don't worry, Dally went on. It ain't loaded. I ain't aiming to get picked up for murder, but it sure does help a bluff. Tim Shepard's gang and our outfit are having it out with the Soch tomorrow night at the vacant lot. We got hold of the president of one of their social clubs and had a war council. Yeah, Daly sighed, and I knew he was remembering New York. Just like the good old days. They win, things go on as usual. If we do, they stay out of our territory, but good. Two Big got jumped a few days ago. Jerry and me came along in time. But he wasn't having too much trouble. Two Bit's a good fighter. Hey, I didn't tell you, we got us a spy. A spy? Johnny looked up from his banana split. Who? That good looking broad I tried to pick up that night you killed the Soch. The redhead. Cherry, what's her name?